Now a special report from KARE 11 investigates.
It's not right.
Veterans saddled with medical debt
The bill is over $1,200.
they should not owe.
So I was getting collection calls.
Legitimate ER bills wrongly denied.
Erroneously denying claim.
And a whistleblower's confession about why.
Is it faster to just deny?
Always.
A national scandal exposed.
If it happened to me, I guarantee it's happening to thousands of veterans nationwide.
KARE 11 investigates a pattern of denial.
Thanks for joining us. I'm investigative reporter AJ Legault. This is a story of how veterans nationwide have been unfairly denied medical coverage they were promised. We've uncovered evidence that despite clear warnings about a broken system, our veterans have been saddled with medical debt they should not owe, potentially billions of dollars. Follow along as we begin our investigation with the discovery that the VA has been refusing to pay for hundreds of thousands of veterans' emergency room visits because, get this, they don't visit the VA often enough.
This is my Class A uniform jacket.
You can learn a lot about a soldier by looking at their dress uniform.
You can tell their rank.
Iraq War Army veteran David Riggs first put his on in 1985.
This one here is a marksman's badge. It's actually a story in a uniform jacket.
And if a ribbon existed for good health, the 55-year-old veteran likely deserves one.
Very seldom, if ever, went to the doctor's office for anything.
But his good health is now costing him
$12,186.
Ginger is David's wife.
But he wasn't raised to let's run to the doctor if I sneeze.
Unless it was life-threatening, you didn't do anything for it except keep it from bleeding and keep on going.
So when he was hurting so bad, he says he couldn't even stand, you know it was bad.
And I was in so much pain, I didn't know which way to turn.
Ginger called 911 and an ambulance took him to the nearest emergency room. A scan showed he had kidney stones.
Unbearable.
That $12,000 bill came in the mail a month later. At the time, Riggs didn't worry. He's a VA healthcare enrollee. Every year, he gets a letter from the government saying he has medical coverage. His VA card even tells him in an emergency to go to the nearest medical facility. So he was surprised when he got this letter from the VA.
They denied my claim because I hadn't seen one of their doctors in the last 24 months.
That's right. Veterans who don't see a VA doctor every 24 months can have their ER bill denied.
I'm being penalized for being healthy and not having to use a doctor very often.
David says he'd never heard of this 24-month rule. Our investigation discovered he's not alone. There was Jay Hill in Colorado, also denied.
I had no idea that this was a thing.
According to this 2014 Government Accountability Office report, most veterans are often not aware of specific eligibility criteria and assume that VA will cover their non-VA emergency care. Randy Williamson was the lead investigator for that report.
VA needs to do a better job informing veterans and finding out what the knowledge gaps are.
But KARE 11's investigation discovered little to nothing was done. In the ensuing 3+ years, in Minnesota alone, 2,030 veterans' ER bills totaling $6.8 million were denied based on the 24-month rule. Nationwide, 219,000 ER claims were denied, putting veterans on the hook for $791 million.
After our investigations exposing how this 24-month denial loophole was impacting veterans, the VA finally began to take action, releasing this new online video about the rule.
At the time of the emergency, the veteran was enrolled in VA healthcare and had received medical services through VA within the last 24 months.
But confusion over VA rules wasn't the most serious problem we discovered. Coming up,
I wake up at night and think of this.
Are veterans being wrongly denied because of pressure on the people who process their claims?
Look for a reason to deny it. It's the fastest way to get your numbers.
A tranquil existence on the shore of Lake Pokegama in northern Minnesota is how 78-year-old Army veteran Jerry Molwitz expected to spend his golden years.
I don't want to destroy it by this type of Garbage.
The garbage is medical bills Jerry says he should not owe.
I don't deserve this.
And a letter from the Department of Veterans Affairs saying claim denied.
Treatment provided does not meet the prudent layperson's definition of an emergency.
Drafted by Uncle Sam in the early 1960s, Jerry receives all of his medical care through the VA. But he had an emergency. A catheter he has, due to an enlarged prostate, got plugged.
Well, I was half crazy with the pain. I was moaning and groaning.
It was 8 o'clock at night, and the nearest VA hospital in St. Cloud was 140 miles away.
And I needed help now. I mean, it hurt. My heart attack was nothing compared to that urinary retention.
Jerry's wife rushed him to the Grand Rapids emergency room.
The doctor said your urinary retention hurts as bad as a woman having a baby. I'm not a woman, but I told the doctor the pain I had was as tough as if I had triplets.
Veterans who get their medical care from the VA can go to an outside hospital in an emergency, and the VA is supposed to pay the portion not covered by other insurance. But remember, the VA is trying to stick Jerry with a bill, claiming what he had was not even a true emergency.
And I know what an emergency is. It isn't because you got a hangnail on your big toe.
Jerry says maybe the VA should try reading how the U.S. Department of Health describes urinary retention as a potentially life-threatening medical condition that requires immediate emergency treatment.
Hurts.
What also hurts is the calls from debt collectors and the threat of a ruined credit rating. Jerry says he's lost track of the time
It's not right.
he's spent unsuccessfully trying to get the VA to reconsider his denial.
Hours. Hours. I wake up at night and think of this. Do I deserve that?
What is he supposed to do? He has to go to the emergency room.
Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar couldn't understand why Jerry was denied either. And he's not the only veteran she's heard from.
And usually when a member of Congress starts getting called over and over again, it's like the canary in the coal mine.
In fact, Carol Levin's investigation found there's evidence of a disturbing pattern of veterans getting stuck with medical bills because the VA claimed they did not have a real emergency.
I felt like my chest was about to pop.
Fearing her husband, Ben Krause, was having a heart attack,
I remember he said, something's wrong, something's wrong.
Gretchen drove the family a mile to the nearest emergency room at Woodwinds. They were here for 9 hours before doctors decided it was actually extreme stress. A veteran, Ben expected the Minneapolis VA would pick up the $6,000 ER bill. He was mistaken.
I got a letter in the mail saying they were going to deny me.
Just like in Jerry's case, Ben's letter stated the treatment provided does not meet the prudent layperson definition of an emergency.
You know, apparently a prudent, normal guy wouldn't have gone to the emergency room if they were experiencing chest pains like I was.
But just look at the VA's own prudent layperson fact sheet. It describes someone with an average knowledge of health who believes failure to obtain immediate medical care could result in placing the patient's health in serious jeopardy. It even gives this example: a patient going to the ER complaining of chest pain, but given a diagnosis of mild gastric irritation. But because chest pain is a potentially serious problem, it, quote, clearly falls into the category of what any prudent layperson would consider an appropriate use of an emergency room.
Right.
I mean, this is almost, when you look at it, this is almost verbatim your case.
Right. I mean, it's black and white. And it's case example A.
We found the same sort of denial is happening all across the country.
VA is many times forced to deny a significant number of emergency treatment claims.
In 2016, the VA told Congress in this report that in just 1 year, 98,000 veterans had their claim denied because the VA determined it was not an emergency. And here's the most important part. Many of these denials are the result of inconsistent application of the prudent layperson standard.
If it happened to me, I guarantee it's happening to thousands of veterans nationwide, if not hundreds of thousands.
So why is it happening? A VA insider thinks he knows.
Is it faster to just deny?
Always.
Still ahead, a whistleblower's confession.
It's been weighing on me a lot.
When a pattern of denial continues.
Some days, if I have to walk a lot, my knee will swell up.
Army veteran Bob Ramsey is a dispatcher for a trucking company. After years as a tank mechanic for Uncle Sam, his knees are shot.
Right when I'll have to be replaced eventually.
In 2015, he needed a knee surgery, but the wait time at the Minneapolis VA was too long. So he was approved for the Veterans Choice Program that President Obama signed into law, allowing veterans facing lengthy VA delays to get care at private hospitals. Bob's surgery was done at Maple Grove.
So I got that done and thought everything would be okay.
Bob has a blood disorder, so he was warned if he had any unusual pain after surgery not to ignore it.
Because I could have a blood clot.
About a week after his surgery at Maple Grove, Bob had growing pain in his calf, so called the Minneapolis VA, asking if he should come into their ER. He says he spoke with the nurse on duty.
And she said, well, you should go in and be seen right away, but you should go back to where you had the surgery. And so that's what I did.
But what happened next made no sense.
Right there.
Bob got a letter in the mail from the Minneapolis VA refusing to pay for his ER visit because he could have gone to the VA.
VA or federal facility was available to provide services. Claim denied. I called for advice, to ask what they want me to do. They told me what to do. I did what they told me to do, and then they refused to pay.
Bob says he tried reasoning with the VA for nearly a year.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, his bill from Maple Grove was turned over to a collection agency.
They'll continue to call and harass you. You know, you're a bad person because you didn't pay your bills.
It's a story that sounded all too familiar to 71-year-old Rocky Waite, a Vietnam War Army medic with a 100% service-connected disability.
I never say I came home, I came back.
His battle with the VA began with a large kidney stone.
The pain just got to be excruciating.
Just like Bob, Rocky called the Minneapolis VA to ask what he should do. He was told to go to the nearest ER, St. John's Hospital, where he had emergency surgery. And 10 days later, when it was time to have the emergency stent removed, he called the VA again. His VA records even prove it. They clearly show he was instructed to go back to St. John's.
I took their advice and went, had the procedure done. Next thing I got was a denial letter from the VA saying I didn't follow protocol.
Despite doing everything right, Rocky was stuck with a $1,200 bill.
So I did as I was told. I don't know how else you could do it.
He appealed and was again denied. Then he saw something that really made him mad.
And then I was watching the television and spotted a story on KARE 11.
After the VA refuses to pay for medical care they instructed him to get.
Our investigation exposing other veterans with wrongful ER bill denials. He emailed us his records.
This one came in from Mr. Rocky Waite.
And we mentioned his case on air.
Sticking this veteran with a $1,200 bill. So he's now asking the question, hey, what should I do?
The very next day,
kind of almost a miracle or something,
Rocky got a voicemail from a VA official.
So we'll get that paid for probably today. I'm sorry about the hassle you went through.
If it hadn't been for KARE 11, I'd have still been fighting this battle, and it could go on for years with these people.
And just one day after KARE 11 contacted the VA about Bob's denial, he too got a voicemail.
So the ER emergent care claims will be processed today for payment.
Bob wonders why it took a call from a reporter for the VA to do what's right.
Well, that's bureaucracy.
But none of the payment problems should have been news to officials here at VA headquarters. Turns out there have been warnings about it for years. Coming up,
we found that basically VA was doing a very poor job.
Early warnings from a government investigator and a whistleblower who witnessed it firsthand.
We were told to pick and click and get them moving.
A pattern of denial continues after the break.
Some veterans were likely billed for care that VA should have paid for.
It's 2014 and Government Accountability Office investigator Randy Williamson is testifying before Congress.
It was pretty much a pattern of a lot of errors.
Describing the GAO's findings. The that the Department of Veterans Affairs was mishandling emergency medical bill claims.
We found that basically VA was doing a very poor job, and they were erroneously denying claims.
His investigation found VA staffers breaking rules, leaving veterans financially liable for bills VA should have paid.
20% of the cases we looked at were wrong, were denied inappropriately.
Is that an acceptable error rate?
Heavens no, it's not. 20%'s not even close.
Grand Rapids Clinic.
Fast forward 3 years, and Carol Evans' investigation,
I don't deserve this,
was still finding the same problems.
Whether the VA should pay this claim is black and white.
In case
The bill is over $1,200.
after case
I was getting collection calls.
after case.
Is the expectation that this issue was being fixed?
That was the expectation.
One of the fixes Williamson expected the VA to make: stop denying payments when the VA itself had pre-approved care at an outside hospital. But we documented it was still happening.
Asked what they want me to do. They told me what to do. I did what they told me to do, and then they refused to pay.
Another problem: clerks denying claims without required medical review.
They were just denying it.
Really?
We knew the improper denials were happening a lot, but we didn't know how or why
3 years,
until a VA whistleblower with a heavy conscience came forward.
It's been weighing on me a lot.
His name is Joe. He asked that we not use his last name. When we met him, he worked as a voucher examiner for the VA's Office of Community Care. That's the office that either approves or denies emergency treatment claims.
A Minnesota veteran turned over to collections after
He'd seen our reports and told us he believes there are a lot more veterans out there stuck with emergency medical bills the VA should have paid.
You know for a 100% fact that there are claims being done incorrectly?
Yes.
Because you've done them incorrectly?
Yes.
An admission in direct conflict with Joe's own 2016 VA employee performance appraisal. In glowing terms, it claims he's an exceptional employee who's accurate an incredible 99% of the time.
Is that true?
Probably not.
Joe says they don't really monitor errors. What they do track and focus on is how many claims examiners complete each hour.
We are accountable for speed. And the faster you are, your performance goes up.
So just how fast does the VA expect examiners like Joe to be when they go through a veteran's often complicated emergency medical bill claim? Joe's performance review spells it out. To get an exceptional employee rating, the target for handling claims like Ben and Bob's is 22 an hour. Let's do some math. If an examiner has 60 minutes to review 22 claims, that means, on average, less than 3 minutes spent reviewing each one. 3 minutes to determine whether it was a real emergency, service-connected, covered by other insurance, or if they should have gone to a VA hospital instead.
We were told to pick and click and get them moving.
Remember Randy Williamson's GAO report back in 2014? It found the same problem. VA management mainly focused on timeliness, not on making sure rules were correctly applied.
Nobody was checking?
Nobody was checking.
And there's more at stake than veterans getting stuck with bills they don't owe. Fearing those bills, GAO found veterans putting their lives at risk by bypassing the closest emergency room to drive miles to the VA, including one vet with a gunshot wound.
When his wife drove him to a veterans hospital 100 miles away rather than go to the nearest facility in the community.
Why?
Because the veteran thought that he would be on the hook for the bill.
Are claims being denied unfairly because you and other claims examiners are not reading them thoroughly?
Yes.
And here's where the VA's focus on speed goes even further off the rails. Joe says it's a lot faster to deny a veteran's claim than to go through all the steps it takes to approve it.
Look for a reason to deny it. It's the fastest way to get your numbers.
In a statement, the Department of Veterans Affairs denied it has quotas, saying employees have a performance plan that measures production standards, effectiveness, quality, and customer service. But that explanation did not ring true to the ranking member of the House Veterans Affairs Committee. After seeing KARE 11's report, Representative Tim Walz called for a new nationwide investigation.
We'll find out how widespread this is. We'll ask the IG to do what they do to see if it's broader, see if this is systemic, and try and figure out how deep it goes.
Just how often has the VA been denying veterans ER bills? KARE 11 crunched 2.5 years worth of VA data and found in the VA Midwest network, which includes Minnesota, 52% of all emergency medical claims are denied. That's $65 million forced back onto veterans to pay. Nationwide, it adds up to $2.6 billion in just 1 year.
Sometimes what's being denied obviously should be approved.
Yes.
That's a damning claim.
Yes.
A confession that leaves veterans like Jerry Malwitz
I fought for this country,
still stuck with bills,
and I'm proud to be a veteran. Proud. U.S. Army.
feeling betrayed.
And then we, at 78 years old, that's how I'm treated.
The Inspector General investigation that Congressman Walz called for is due to be completed in 2019. Just within the last month, the Department of Veterans Affairs enacted key reforms, including nationally standardized reviews for accuracy on emergency medical bill denials. On behalf of all of us at KARE 11, thanks for watching A Pattern of Denial.